Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? You know, I was listening to something yesterday, and it reminded me of something I've thought about an awful lot. It's not like a new or novel thought, sort of. It just put it in a different way. You ever have that experience where somebody says something and they just come at it from a slightly different angle, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to talk really briefly about an idea that I did not come up with, and just called the real rules. We talk an awful lot about playing games, playing role-playing games, and whether we're going to play them rules as written. You know, how important are the rules? Am I going to consult the rules, or are we just going to play? And you know, how intrusive do I want these rules to get? And all that sort of stuff that I've talked about in this channel, that I've talked about with all kinds of people. We've had very engaging discussions about what is actually going on. But this thing I was listening to, the person reminded me that there's always a set of rules that we're operating by. They're called the real rules. So how do we actually handle situations in the game? How do we actually play? We're playing by a set of rules. There are rules. And the difference, or one of the major differences can be, how do we treat the text? This right here, is this a set of rules that we're going to go consult when we need to find out what I'm supposed to do, to consult for the procedure? Or are we going to take these, and are these just simply going to inform how we play? Different set of rules at that point. I either consult this, or I learn this, and then these rules here, the text itself, the procedures in play, in this book, and a whole bunch of other books, they simply tell me how I'm going to proceed, or inform how I proceed once I've wrapped my head around them. It's interesting because as we've had these discussions about playing rules as written, as I've learned, games powered by Ubiquity, like All for One, Regime Diabolique, a lot of props today. The idea is, at least for my personal algorithm, and this shouldn't be a surprise to somebody watching this channel, is initially I'm trying to play them rules as written to stop. As much as I hate to do that, but just consult, like, okay, what's the actual procedure here, until I get to a point where I'm able to make decisions informed by the text in that book, where the rules of play become much more about knowing how a game handles things, and then informing my decisions, or how we play, that our culture of play as a group. We're informed by what we know is in there. You take a book like this, giant monster, and how much do I want to open this up? Am I going to have, are the real rules going to be every time we come to a situation we open up this 600 and some odd page monster and go looking for the rule, or do we take the procedures, the text in here, learn what it is, wrap our heads around it, and then from that point on in play we are now informed by this text, and those become the actual rules of the game. This is an easy thing for me to pick up because in a lot of ways this game, is informed by games that I played for a long time. I can look through this, figure out some of the nuances, but then in actual play, should I run this game, my culture of play would probably be that I'm very informed by the text rather than the real rules of the game as we stop and find out exactly how far, what's the long range on an arrow. Whereas if I'm playing Broken Rooms for the first time, then I expect that the real rules are going to be when we encounter something that we are going to stop and consult the text. And the rules of play are this text is something we're going to consult and we're going to make our decisions based upon. Certainly the first time I ran Desolation, the only time I ran Desolation, that is how I proceeded. Running Ubiquity now, I still, in this phase where the real rules are we are going to consult the text or make sure that we're doing this right. But the real rules of that game, so to speak, as we're playing All for One, Regime Diabolique, at least, when I'm sitting in the chair, it's starting to slowly, the real rules are starting to slowly gravitate over towards the real rules being that we are informed by what's in that text. And I don't mean in a sense that, I want to house rule it or make, calls on the fly to alter the rules. It's more like that I have an understanding of these rules or procedures of the text. See how confusing that can get? I have an understanding of the text and the procedures outlining it to the point where if the real rules are I use it to inform my decision-making processes, then I'm going to get really darned close, if not right on the nose, with what the text actually says. But it could be your intention to simply, play a game like that, I suppose, like Ubiquity or like Basic Fantasy Role-Playing Game, where this is simply going to inform you of this is kind of how the procedures ought to run, and it may be your intent or your culture of play to move those in a different direction because you want to produce a different outcome or a different feel. Kind of a subset of those intentions, which I didn't really think about. But the idea, okay, am I going to be informed by these rules simply because I want to push them in a different direction? Or am I going to be informed by these rules because now I understand how they work, and rather than cracking this book open, which is also kind of thick, I'm going to make a call which I'm pretty confident, based upon my familiarity with them and experience with them, that I know I'm going to get really close to the bullseye. So that's kind of an interesting thought I was having today, and the way the person put it kind of made things gel a little bit more. So, what's your experience been with all that?